block any of those Dire Claw shenanigans like we saw in our last match. But of course, into the Ursa Luna as well, you're just shutting off the ability to that Flame Orb to burn it and activate Guts.
Well, we're also going to see the Jan Mega that Wolfe is bringing to this event immediately on the field next to that Sneasler. It's going to be Mousehold Archaludon here for Stefan to start out this game number 1.
And this Mousehold is the beat up set. It does not have the population bomb. It's got beat up, taunt, follow me, and protect with the safety goggles and the friend guard. So a fully support oriented set. But of course the beat up coming through first, actually moving before Sneasler.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very, very fast Mousehold. Might be leaning a little bit heavier into its speed investment to make sure it's going to be moving just a bit faster. And as we see the beat-ups connect with this Archaludon, it's going to be very similar to that strategy we ended up seeing Nicholas Morales actually use there with Pop Bomb to help boost up those stamina stacks. So you're going to give this Archaludon just a bit more of that defense. We're going to see the Dire Claw activate, though, and it's going to be a poison onto the Mousehold. One of the least bad status conditions I think you could have happen into the Mousehold. But it's going to be a follow-up, a double up there from that Jan Mega to KO this Mousehold first and foremost.
The Dire Claw poison not really mattering in the end, as it did get knocked out by those two moves. Flash Cannon comes through. There's a big chunk to Sneasler, should be enough for a 2-hit KO. But of course the 4 defense boost going to be very handy here for this Archaludon. Sneasler now will have a really hard time damaging it. Of course the Jan Mega, it only has Bug Buzz and Air Slash as its attack options, both of which are resisted, and this Archaludon is holding the Assault Vest as well. So Archaludon in a very strong spot here, won't be taking too much damage from either Pokemon, and the Klefki will come in and have the option to set up the Reflect, the Light Screen, even the Misty Terrain for later on down the line.
It's also really nice, too, to have this Archaludon in front of the Sneasler, because not only are you not going to be taking too much damage from the close combat unless you do get crit, but you're also going to be immune to the Dire Claw, so I think that's a really, really important factor to have this Archaludon set up in front of it. But there's still this Jan Mega you have to worry about. It still has that Focus Sash intact, and every single turn it's going to be getting faster and faster thanks to its speed boost ability.
Reflect does go up, which means physical moves will be dealing less damage, but Air Slash, a very accurate move, just isn't 100, will miss, and close combat comes through. Will not do too much to Klefki. That Reflect already paying dividends as the defense and special defense drop, and the White Herb on this Sneasler will activate. It is the Unburden set and not Poison Touch like we usually see.
All right, well, that's going to actually allow this Sneasler to actually stay up in this game number 1. As you saw those defense drops actually get eliminated, this Archaludon can't finish the job.
White Herb is really cool. You can reset an Intimidate drop, you can reset the defense drops in close combat, either of which will activate that Unburden ability. In this case, coming in very handy, that Flash Cannon looks like it was a roll for a 2-hit KO.
It's going to be Misty Terrain that's going to get set up here from this Klefki, so kind of preparing for what could potentially be in the back. As we see the Sneasler get another close combat into this Klefki, now it's going to keep those defense drops that it was going to have had that turn prior. And it's the Air Slash now to finish up the Klefki. That is going to be a second KO that Wolfe is able to take in this first game.
But now Archaludon has the chance to attack. We see the Snarl come through. Not known for its big damage, but is enough to finish off that Sneasler. A critical hit into Jan Mega will break the Focus Sash and more importantly lower the special attack. Really nice play there from Archaludon, because any sort of damage would have been enough for the Jan Mega, or for the Sneasler rather. And now Jan Mega has no Focus Sash and it is at -1 special attack.
It's going to be the Archaludon here from Wolfe that's now going to take that Sneasler's place after it's been knocked out. And this Archaludon is really interesting. We haven't gotten a chance to talk about it yet, but it's actually going to have the Stalwart ability, able to actually work around any of this redirection. Sinistra, one of the redirection users that Stefan has on his team with something like the Rage Powder.
And it holds the Power Herb item as well. You see no rain on Wolfe's team, which means that typically Electroshot won't have the option to go for the one-turn attack. However, Power Herb will allow you a one-time use of Electroshot on a single turn, and then boost your special attack to then keep attacking later on in the game.
It's also got this Electric Terra type, which is going to be utilizing in this game number 1, so it's going to give an additional boost to the Electroshot, but it's also got Thunderbolt as a secondary electric type attack that will also be further boosted by that. The Air Slash into the Sinistra is going to do basically about half HP, and as we see this Electroshot come through from this Archaludon, you get a chance to go ahead and increase your special attack. You use this move immediately thanks to the Power Herb that you're holding on to, and even though it's going to end up being resistant to something like the Sinistra, it's still going to be able to deal a good amount of damage.
That's huge damage. That's a resisted attack. The Klefki was not able to set up light screen before it got knocked out, so that is the main reason this Archaludon on Wolfe's side of the field still has a good shot. Although body press coming through, really not doing too much. That's a +4 defense, but the Sinistra flinches. Yanmega at -1 special attack, but you don't need special attack to get an air slash flinch.
No, it would have been really nice to be able to get that life due, just to know that you were going to have a little bit more staying power there onto the Sinistra, but you have consumed your Citrus Berry. You're still going to be around for just a little bit longer, and Terrestrialization is still available to try to get rid of your weakness to some of those super effective air slashes from the Yanmega. But every single turn, this Yanmega is getting more and more of these speed boosts.
The speed boosts are going to be helpful for possibly getting more of those air slash flinches. Of course, you got to be moving first if you want to flinch with an attack, but that flinch on the Sinistra on Stefan's end, really unfortunate. That could have been a very impactful Trick Room or even a life due to recover some HP. I believe that the remaining Pokemon on Wolfe's side of the field are going to be faster than Stefan's for the rest of this game. So a Trick Room here could be a big deal for Stefan to flip that speed disadvantage.
Well, here's the Terrestrialization onto the Sinistra. It's going to be taking that Fairy Terra, so a little bit more defensive in the face of both of these Pokemon. It's also going to make you immune to the Dragon Pulse that this Archaludon does have. But here's the Bug Buzz reading into it just a little bit more, as the Dragon Pulse, though, is going to get caught off guard by this Fairy Terrestrialization. Snarl connecting onto both the Archaludon and the Omega are going to be big here, because that is going to remove that special attack boost that the Archaludon had, thanks to that Electro Shot we saw just a turn before.
Huge turn for Stefan. Caught Wolfe kind of sleeping on this Sinistra. The Terra Fairy means that it is immune to that Dragon Pulse and took no damage. And of course, it resisted the Bug Buzz as well. Wolfe going for the more accurate Bug Buzz there just to make sure that Dragon Pulse plus Bug Buzz could finish it off. But that Terrestrialization came in big because Life Dew might be able to keep the Sinistra around a little bit longer.
Not going to try to go for another Electroshot setup, though, because that Meteor Beam is gone, or the Power Herb is gone. Sorry, I'm like, oh, Power Herb and Meteor Beam, right? But the Thunderbolt, this is why you end up having a secondary Electric-type attack on this Archaludon, because you can still make use of this Electroterra that you have. Stefan is now just down to the Archaludon. That is all he has for this game number 1, and Wolfe still has a fully healthy Pokemon in the back.
I like that Flash Cannon, though. This Yanmega, even though it's not doing too much damage, it did have the Air Slash, which could cause some issues down the line. Of course, those flinches are a very real thing that Stefan would have had to deal with. And now that Ursaluna comes in, actually very smart of him to not set up Trick Room that I was kind of hinting on a couple turns ago. This Ursaluna likely very slow and should be slower than the Archaludon on Stefan's side, but now with those boosted body presses, might be able to knock it out before it moves.
Yeah, it's actually not going to go for a Protect either, so the Ursaluna gets so close to being knocked out, but it's not going to be quite enough as the Headlong Rush in response. Take a look at how well that Archaludon is going to take that after all of those stamina defense stacks.
And of course, the Ursaluna also took that very well. I fully expected that to be knocked out with the +4 defense coming out from this Archaludon, but I think this is still, a bit of an advantage for Stefan here. The Ursaluna now is at -1 defense and special defense, so you imagine a Snarl maybe knocks it out. If you're able to go for a Snarl and bring this special attack of Wolfe's Archaludon back down to neutral, you can probably win that 1v1 in the end.
But Snarl can miss, so it's going to have to be able to connect onto both of these Pokemon, and Wolfe's Archaludon is going to be back with another attack, but it's going to be the Ursaluna that it misses, and that's huge! That's going to give this Ursaluna another chance to attack! And it's going to be the Headlong Rush once again into this Archaludon.
Oh, that's really unfortunate for Stefan there. That Snarl miss meant that the Headlong Rush comes through, and that might be the damage difference that Wolfe needed for a Dragon Pulse to KO Stefan's Archaludon. This has been a really back and forth battle, Rosemary, with these flinches and that Snarl miss. But unfortunately for Stefan, just that one little 5% chance of that Snarl miss is going to be a huge difference maker here. I think this Dragon Pulse from this, again, neutral special attack Archaludon now is probably enough.
It is going to be able to get the knockout here, and so Wolfe able to carve out that victory in that game number 1 after being in a pretty difficult position. Misty Terrain getting set up, all of these different defense boosts as well as those screens to make sure that Ursaluna in the back was going to be stunted for just a little bit, but able to weave in the last of it at the very end there. Maybe getting a little bit of good fortune his way, but as we've already seen on the stream, you need to be able to be in a position to actually take advantage of that in the first place.
Right, and Wolfe did a great job there too. I really like the way that Stefan set up this Archaludon. He was using the right moves at the right times. Of course, Snarl isn't something we see too often on Archaludon anymore, but it came in very handy here. It was able to have a big impact on this Yanmega. It stuck around on the field for a long time with that -1 special attack. Of course, it was able to KO the Focus Sash Sneasler at the very end. And spread damage? Like, you could have knocked out Ursaluna while doing some damage to Archaludon as well. So it really well set up here, especially with the Reflect, with the beat up early on. Also very notable, the Mouse Hold on Stefan's end is outspeeding the Sneasler. Sneasler naturally a little bit faster than Mouse Hold, and with that Unburdened White Herb combo, that maybe gives Wolf some more room to invest in attack.
So that means that you're going to have to watch out for the attack output of not just the Sneasler, but of course this Ursaluna. I mean, it was the Ursaluna that was the final piece in Wolf's team for this game number 1. You kind of have to imagine that Wolf might want to bring that again in this second game. See if that's going to be what's able to get him over the finish line and get him this 4-0 undefeated run. But I don't know. I feel like both of them could also just run back the 4 that they brought.
I think you could. Realistically, like, that game can go much differently for Stefan. He had the air slash flinch, he had the snarl dodge, and so there are certainly things that could have gone better for him. If you're Wolf, though, obviously you're going to take that victory, of course. Even if it maybe could have gone a different way, you're starting the second game 1-0 up. That gives you the room to make a possible adjustment based on what you saw Stefan bring, the strategies he employed with this 4 Pokemon that he brought when he was going for, KOs with Flash Cannon, KOs with Body Press, just some like support with Snarl. It gives you some more info that you can then use to kind of adjust your game plan going into game 2.
Yanmega is still such an interesting piece of Wolf's team. I think that's a Pokemon maybe a lot of people were not looking at as necessarily a meta staple.
Right.
But I feel like if we were going to get any inclination out of what Wolf might be trying to do this season, we take a look at the Toad Scroll team from Baltimore and we think, okay, maybe Wolf's got a couple of tricks up his sleeve. Going to be a run back of the same leads, though, for this game number 2 for both of them.
Notably, the Sneasler on Wolf's end does not have Fake Out either, so there's no need to go for something like a Protect on Mouse Hold. Make sure you don't get faked out and can't use that beat up. So the Mouse Hold should be acting first once again, and once again, we have a beat up straight into that Archaludon.
So these defense stacks are going to be big, as we ended up seeing from this Sneasler. If you go for something like the close combat, you do end up getting rid of those defense and special defense drops thanks to the White Herb. But I also think you have to take a look at just how well Archaludon by itself is going to be able to take some of these physical attacks. Still means that it's going to be a little bit more vulnerable to something from this Yanmega, as we see the close combat from the Sneasler actually go into the Mouse Hold instead.
Right away, going for that close combat for the one-hit KO into Mouse Hold. You get the beat up off, but nothing else for the rest of this game. Of course, that White Herb does activate, which will return its defensive stats back to normal and double its speed for as long as it remains on the field. Air Slash comes through, one more stamina boost, but Archaludon flinches! Oh, Stefan, that is so unfortunate.
Oh, that's really unfortunate. In game number 1, we ended up seeing an attack come out of that Archaludon in that first turn, and it really made sure that the Yanmega and that Sneasler were a little bit easier to work with. Now the Sneasler is going into this turn number 2 at full HP. Sinistra is able to come in, though, to take that Mouse Hold's place, so a little bit nice to have that support next to it, and also bring that Archaludon back up to full HP thanks to Hospitality, but still really tough position to be in to have missed out on that damage right off the bat.
The Yanmega's Focus Sash still very much intact as well. Wolf got a KO and lost nothing other than those defense boosts going up, but we saw in game 1, he was able to finish the job with those defense boosts. Close combat, though, straight into the Sinistra slot.
It is just a read after read here. Very safe to also go for that if you are expecting that you're going to end up seeing something come into that slot. And you also had the Air Slash as just a follow-up. You don't have screens set up in this game just yet. So that Air Slash was always going to be able to make sure that you're going to get damage in that slot either way.
And making sure that this Klefki comes in takes a big chunk of damage on the way. It probably only gets one attack off. You have to pick between Light Screen, Reflect, or Misty Terrain, all of which can be very impactful in this matchup. So a great read from Wolf there to make sure this Klefki doesn't have just the chance to be disruptive, be supportive, and keep this Archaludon safe from attacks from the remainder of Wolf's team.
You gotta deal with one of these Pokemon though, because after a certain point, the Sneasler, one of the reasons why it's been so dominant in this meta is because it's able to pump out consistent damage across the board. And even though you're maybe not able to use something like the Dire Claw into your Chaladon, which makes Misty Terrain maybe not as valuable of an option here, you could still go for close combat, and you're still able to take an inch, turn it into a mile with the damage from the Sneasler.
And not to mention the Sneasler also has the Throat Chop attack. When Sinister comes back in, it typically would be pretty good into Sneasler, except it has the option to hit it for super effective damage.
It's going to be an Incineroar, though, here from Wolfe. It's going to be a bit of a switch up to what we saw from game number 1. Wonder what it was that he decided to leave at home. But this Klefki able to set up the light screen in this turn, as it's going to be another Air Slash, but that light screen able to keep this Klefki alive. And we're going to see this Flash Cannon now. Incineroar is going to not take very much damage from that, though, because it resists it.
It does resist, but the option to Terastallize is still very much available for Wolfe. This Incineroar doesn't want to be taking a +5 defense body press, but it is the Terra Ghost, so it might not have to at all. And just looking at the remainder of Stefan's team, we see the Klefki and the Sinistra. That Terra Ghost would put in a lot of work. Archaludon, Klefki, and Sinistra without the body press option from the +5 Archaludon, not the greatest offensive threat, especially into Ghost types.
There's an option here, though. I think it's really interesting to see that Archaludon does have the opportunity to go for something like an Electro Shot without having Rain on the team. As we saw Wolfe go for something very similar with his own Archaludon, you could go to try to stall out a turn, see if you can bait out something like the Terastallization, not fall victim to the fact that you might body press it into that Ghost Terra instead.
Incineroar does turn into a Ghost type thanks to Terastallization, will no longer take damage from body press. Reflect does go up, though. No fake out coming out from this Incineroar.
Well, Air Slash is going to do the job it wanted to finish on that turn before. Klefki now out of here, and Stefan down to his final 2 Pokemon. And again, that Sinistra going to be that final one in the back. But as we see the Flash Cannon not pick up the KO onto this Yameka, we are going to see a parting shot here from this Incineroar to drop the special attack of their Chaladon.
Yeah, now you're not taking much damage at all if you're that Incineroar. Of course, Body Press will do 0. Flash Cannon doing even less. And like you said, Rose, there is no Rain active. Electro Shot would have to take the full 2 turns if it is to go off. And so if you do want to get that special attack back up to neutral, especially considering this Archaludon can no longer leave the field, it's going to take some time. And I don't know if you have that much time left if you're Stefan.
No, it's very tough to be in this position because you also have a tough time using the Terastallization. You've got the Dire Claw and the Sneasler that will be able to do super effective poison type damage into the Fairy Terra, and you're still going to have to take Air Slash damage regardless, which could end up flinching at the end of it. But as we see the Dire Claw, it's going to be okay. You've got the Citrus Berry to help recover some of that HP, but it's about whether or not you actually get a chance to move, because you've got 2 very fast Pokemon on the opposing side. The Snarl going to help finish off this Yamega once and for all, but it's about whether or not the Sinistra can actually help make sure that you've got an endgame set up here.
Sinistra will use Life Dew, so is able to recover 25% of its maximum HP. It did lose a little bit from that Air Slash Dire Claw combo, but ends the turn almost back at full. Of course, Archaludon took no damage. It will have no effect on that Life Dew, but Incineroar comes back in for Wolfe. And if you're Stefan here, you're going to have such a hard time getting rid of this Incineroar. But at the same time, Wolfe doesn't have a great way to immediately damage Archaludon either. You're at +5 defense. These are 2 physical attackers. And if Wolfe does have a special attacker in the back, Snarl is ready.
Yeah, with the Dire Claw here, you're still hoping that something is going to get activated, but there's still no secondary effect from the Dire Claw. As the Flare Blitz to follow up into the Sinistra is going to be able to hang on through that super effective damage, but you got the Machigacha in response. Now that this Incineroar is no longer a Fire type 2, you could actually get the burn onto either of these Pokemon. Not to be, though.
We'll recover a little bit of HP from that Machigacha. Of course, the burn on Sneasler, though. Is that enough for a knockout, Rosemary? It's really going to be close.
It is a very, very close call here. I forgot that the burn activates after you see the HP recovery. And the Sneasler is going to hang on through that burn.
It looks like even with the burn, a combination of Dire Claw and Flare Blitz probably knocks out this Sinistra. And once the Sinistra goes down, it is Archaludon against the world. If one Pokemon can do it, maybe it is that Archaludon with all those defense boosts. But you're going to struggle to put out meaningful damage at this point. Of course, Sneasler will go down after this turn. Incineroar, since it did Terastallize, Flash Cannon does become neutral, but it is still at -1 special attack, and it's going to be difficult to get enough damage out. You have the combination of Parting Shot, of knockoff, I believe, on this Incineroar that could remove a possible Assault Vest on this Archaludon. Not possible. It is obviously Assault Vest, so you could get rid of that. But Dire Claw comes through here into the Sinistra. Will paralyze it this time, but we did see Incineroar act before Sinistra last turn. So as long as Flare Blitz comes through here, probably enough for the knockout regardless.
Yeah, Incineroar is just going to take a little bit of HP drop here from that Flash Cannon, as yet another parting shot is going to put this Archaludon down to -2 special attack. And with these Intimidates coming through as well, you are going to be able to help out just a little bit with Body Press.
True, Body Press, I mean, it still is a big factor here. Archaludon comes out for Wolfe. It cannot terrestrialize itself anymore. We did see it turn into the Electric type. And based on how much damage we saw it do in Game 1 at +4 defense with the Electric Terra, I believe one Body Press probably knocks out Wolfe's Archaludon immediately. So this game might actually still be very winnable for Stefan. The Yon Mega is not going to be doing too much damage. I can't tell if it's actually knocked out. I think it is.
It's out.
It is out. Okay, so it is just the final two
Snarl.
Pokemon.
Yeah, there's only 2 Pokemon left. It's going to be this Incineroar coming back in to get that Intimidate drop again. But this Archaludon still has its Power Herb as the 4th and final Pokemon yet to be revealed in this game. And so it could go for something like the Electro Shot right away. But Sinistra, without having a Terra, is going to resist some of that damage, but it's still a lot on the you're going to have to take.
This is going to be really interesting, Rose. I actually think this became pretty winnable for Stefan because this Incineroar can't really do damage to Archaludon. Wolfe's Archaludon could, but you need to Electro Shot first, and if you do go for Electro Shot, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to that Body Press, which I believe will just knock it out. Fake Out does come through, though. Does exactly 1 damage thanks to the +5 defense. Get it up to +6. Why not?
Why
Electro
not?
Shot does come through.
Yeah, so the Electro Shot here is going to help make sure that this Archaludon can really put in the work here, but without that Electric Terra, as you said, since that terrestrialization was committed onto the Incineroar, it just doesn't have that extra bit of power. You don't have that same type of attack bonus, and that's going to allow the Sinistra to hang on. And of course, as you see the Archaludon the paralysis onto the Sinistra means it's not going to be able to move this turn either.
That's really unfortunate. I think this is still winnable, though. As long as Archaludon on Stefan's side is able to get a Body Press off into Wolfe's, this could be a game that Stefan wins, but Wolfe does have the option to protect his own Archaludon. And if you do catch Stefan's Archaludon going for Body Press into the Archaludon on Wolfe's side, you could possibly go for a knockoff into Archaludon, remove that Assault Vest, and then your +1 Dragon Pulses will be doing a lot more damage. Sinistra hanging on there is big, though, because you do still have the option to go for that Rage Powder, redirect a possible Dragon Pulse, which will do 0 damage to the Fairy-type Sinistra.
Either way, though, you're going to be redirecting away something from this Incineroar, and if it if it is the knockoff there, then you are going to make sure that you're going to take a little bit less damage from that, but it's still an Incineroar. It still has pretty good attack, but it's going to be the Flare Bliss regardless, so that is going to get the knockout onto the Sinistra, and you're still in a position where I think it's possible to win, but it's just not as easy now.
It's not. You are down to only your Archaludon left at 99% of its HP remaining, minus the 1 from Fake Out. And again, I'm pretty confident Body Press will knock out Wolfe's Archaludon, and then it becomes a matter of if your Flash Cannons, even at -2 special attack, will be able to deal enough damage to this Incineroar before it can knock it out. Archaludon on Wolfe's side fails the double protect, which means Body Press comes through.
Yes, and that is going to get the 1-hit knockout onto the Archaludon and leave this down to a 1v1 in the second game between Wolfe's Incineroar and Stefan's Archaludon. You get the knockoff, but with all of those defense boosts, it's going to be very minuscule damage, despite the fact that it's boosted a little bit by having held an item in the first place.
Stats. -5 attack, +6 defense, -2 special attack. That is wild. I've never seen a stat spread like that. Even though this game might take a few more turns to knock out because of those 2 parting shots, a critical hit just ends it right away. We're going to game 3, folks.
What an intense couple of turns in these last few games we have had. A little bit of bad luck going Stefan's way in that very first game, but in that second game, the Archaludon able to actually do what it wanted to in the first place, be able to get the knockouts, be the star of the show. But Wolfe made it so difficult. There's so many different factors that come into play in this matchup, where not only do you have the Sneasler that's going to be able to remove all of its defense and special defense drops thanks to the White Herb, but you've got this Yon Mega that keeps getting speed boosts, and you still have Dire Claw that could activate on any given turn. And on the Fleet damages that could come through from Air Slash.
I think the way that Stefan has built this team, especially the way he's trained, really just the Mousehold in particular, to be as fast as possible. Looking at Wolfe's team, Mousehold is actually the fastest Pokemon on the field. It will outspeed everything before the speed boost from Yanmega, before the White Herb, and there is no fake out on Sneasler, only Incineroar. So if you want to lead Incineroar, maybe try and go for a fake out on that Mousehold to stop that turn 1 beat up. That could be an option, but Mousehold is Terra Ghost. You could just go straight away for that Terrestrialization, and I think if you're Stefan, you really are prioritizing that first beat up. That puts you in a position where these physical attackers, the Incineroar, the Sneasler, the Ursaluna, aren't doing too much damage at all, and especially that Incineroar, after you're intimidating it, you're getting another boost from a fake out, from any kind of attack. Once those stamina boosts are built up on Stefan's side, Clucky can come in, go for a light screen. I think that's more important than Reflect right now because of those stamina boosts. But at the same time, like, how does Wolfe break that without a flinch, a crit? Like, we saw Stefan get pretty much the setup he wanted, even with some not as good luck in that second game, and Wolfe could not break that Archaludon.
This game 3 is going to be really intense.
Yeah.
It's going to be really, really intense. And I wonder if Wolfe decides maybe Incineroar isn't the right call. And we ended up seeing the Ursaluna in game number 1. It did get a little bit more difficult to handle when you saw that misty terrain and just all of those defense boosts onto the Archaludon. But is there anything else that Wolfe could do to actually switch things up, make it so that this Archaludon doesn't get too out of hand on Stefan's side?
I think maybe leveraging your own Archaludon if you're Wolfe could be an option. We saw that go pretty well for him in that first game, and when you come in like later on in the game with that Archaludon, after a possible light screen has been set up, and after all these stamina boosts have been acquired, it can be a lot more difficult for Wolfe's Archaludon to get damage into Stefan's. Special attacks are a really good way to deal with Archaludon, but if they're going to be fully resisted, it's not as easy.
Well, here is what you were talking about, the Incineroar making an appearance right off the bat here. So is this Mousehold going to lean into something like that Ghost Terra if you are expecting to end up seeing that fake out come through? It could be a fake out also onto the Archaludon, but I feel like knowing where this Terrestrialization has been committed in the past 2 games, I think you're okay committing it onto the Mousehold.
I think you really just want that beat up, right? Those stamina boosts are the only thing that kept Stefan in the game those first 2 times, and they're a big source of damage output. The defense boosts are great when you're not taking much damage, but boosting up body press is really important too, and immediately we see the Ghost Terrestrialization from Stefan's Mousehold, ensuring it cannot be faked out, it cannot be flinched this turn, and will get that beat up off.
So there's no fake out at all actually from Wolfe's Incineroar, so maybe even just reading, here we go, we've got that Ghost Terra out of the way, and we've seen this Incineroar lock into something like Parting Shot to make sure that you are going to be doing a little bit less special attack. But you could also go for something like the knockoff. While this Mousehold is now a Ghost Terra, it does get a little bit more vulnerable to something like the knockoff from this Incineroar.
The nice part about Ghost Terra is exactly this too, entirely unaffected by the close combat, and body press comes through here. Incineroar to not terrestrialize, huge one-hit KO for Stefan on turn 1.
That Incineroar was such a problem in that game number 2, coming in with the Parting Shots, pivoting out the same way, getting the Intimidate drops, and now it is not a part of this equation. But Wolfe does have his own Archaludon waiting in the back. But now that this beat-up setup is here, we saw how much body press did if it doesn't Terra. It's almost better that Wolfe is not committed the Terra just yet, so he has it for the Archaludon to get away from body press.
He does. Mousehold will protect itself, will not want to take any damage this turn, as we are going to see how Wolfe decides to respond. To protect his own, arm the Archaludon means that it also will not be taking damage, but I do believe we saw a Snarl come through her Rosemary, so no body press whipping into that slot.
Body press, the Snarl is so interesting though, because while we do see the Snarl not be able to connect onto this Archaludon, we see the Sneasler doesn't really matter too much here, except the fact that when you see the special attack drop come through, the White Herb is immediately consumed to get rid of it, and now that White Herb is not available for those close combat drops.
Exactly. If Sneasler does opt to close combat, those defense drops will stick, and the Ghost typing on Mousehold, really important here. It would have dodged Fake Out on turn 1. Of course, we saw dodge damage from that close combat combat as well. But now Sneasler into a ghost type has to resort to something like the Dire Claw or the Throat Chop to get big damage out into that slot. Of course, the Archelodon on Wolf's side still is very vulnerable to that body press or, of course, a Snarl. If one Snarl does come through, it will negate the boost from Electro Shot like we saw in that first game.
Well, here's the Terrestrialization now. If it is going to be that Archelodon, we've seen that Electric Terra do a lot of work behind that Electro Shot or that Thunderbolt. As you said, though, Power Herb's still in play to make sure that you are going to be able to get some type of boost. But here's where this Archelodon can get a little bit tricky. We've got Mousehole going for Follow Me, but because it's a stalwart Archelodon, it's going to actually ignore that redirection.
Close Combat does not ignore that redirection, though. Will once again go into that Ghost type Mousehold, and Electro Shot does come through. Like you said, Rosemary, it is not affected by Follow Me at all, so whatever target Wolf selected this turn will be where this Electro Shot hits. Power Herb activates, will allow the one-turn use of Electro Shot after that special attack boost, and it comes through with that Electric Terra.
Still going to be into the Mousehold, though. The Mousehold was applying a lot of pressure, not even just as a redirection user, but also just the fact that, well, it's got Friend Guard. Yeah. So you're going to have this Archelodon able to stick around just a little bit better with that ability that as the Snarl is able to connect onto both Pokemon, once again, the Archelodon does get that Electro Shot boost taken right away.
I love that Snarl because we saw in game 1 that a Body Press fails to 2-hit KO Archelodon on Wolf's side after it terrestrializes with only 4 defense boosts, which is where Stefan's Archelodon sits now. So Snarl not only puts it in range for 2 more Body Presses from this point forward, it negates that Power Herb Electro Shot boost. We're back down to neutral special attack. There are no +1s anymore. And of course, this Sneasler still has to deal with the Archelodon at +4 defense. We did see Close Combat come out last turn, obviously trying to go into the Archelodon. Would have done okay damage, but because of those defense boosts, it's able to sit in front of Sneasler pretty well, especially considering we have the option for pivoting out with Sinistcha, reusing Hospitality later on, and of course, those life dues.
Klefki getting switched in here, though. It would have to take something like the Close Combat, but this Close Combat actually does connect onto the Archelodon, doing about a quarter damage to that HP pool. Sneasler's defense drops are also going to stick as Archelodon gets another defense boost here. But as the Dragon Pulse is able to connect as well, it's going to bring this Archelodon down to half HP. The good news, though, is you do have the Sinistcha in the back, and you've got another special attack drop onto the Archelodon on Wolf's side.
Another smart Snarl. I think you're tempted to start going for body presses there, but now if you're Stefan, you can very easily switch back into Sinistcha, heal up more of the Archelodon's HP, and now that Sneasler has gone for Close Combat, it's more vulnerable to damage. You've also boosted the defense and offensive output of Archelodon thanks to Stamina, and Wolf's Archelodon now down to -1 special attack. We already saw it do not too much damage with Dragon Pulse, but now it's going to be doing even less, and this Archelodon for Stefan is becoming a bit of a raid boss here.
It's become a huge problem to get through, but Wolf still has his own Archelodon that is sitting at a pretty good amount of HP in the Close Combat. Again, it's just tickling away at this Archelodon that just got a little bit of a reprieve thanks to the Hospitality. Dragon Pulse, though, you only really have a choice except to double into this Archelodon, try to remove it as quickly as possible. We don't know what's in the back here for Wolf, but we're about to find out as Sneasler gets knocked out.
Stefan taking another KO here with that Flash Cannon. With all those defense drops from Close Combat, easily will be enough, and Yanmega comes through. Yanmega and Archelodon on Wolf's side, the final 2. Sinistcha does have Rage Powder, but again, Stalwart will prevent redirection of any of its attacks. If Wolf does opt to go for the Dragon Pulse into Archelodon on Stefan's side, it will be hitting that Archelodon, and notably, you can't Life Dew and Rage Powder here. Archelodon is now in a position where, it is very bulky, but we have 2 special attackers on the field for Wolf. Those stamina boosts are now moot, other than the damage output on Body Press. And if you switch Sinistcha out to try and use Hospitality next turn, you have to wonder if a combination of Air Slash and Dragon Pulse can just KO the Archelodon on Stefan's side.
What's really tough here, too, is that the Dragon Pulse will get knocked out to a crit.
Right.
So that is something else that you have to be a little bit wary of, as the Air Slash is going to connect into the Sinistcha. Still able to hang on through that one, but gonna take that a little bit better, knowing that it's gonna have that Citrus Berry to munch on to get a little bit of that HP back. But as Archelodon tries another last-ditch effort to take out this Archelodon on Stefan's end, it's gonna be able to survive to get yet another Flash Cannon off. And Yanmega is going to take a pretty good amount of damage from that one. Focus Sash, doesn't need it if it's going to be able to survive the hit, but it now doesn't have it for the rest of this game.
Rosemary, I'm wondering if Stefan is trying to set up a Klefki endgame, like a Dazzling Gleam sweep here. I think Yanmega, obviously, both of its attacks resisted by Klefki, especially if you have the option to get a light screen set up. This Archaludon only has a Thunderbolt and Electroshot left that can damage this Klefki, and even though it has that Electric Terra, it's at -2 special attack thanks to all of these snarls. And we might actually be seeing a Klefki Dazzling Gleam set up here. This Archaludon on Stefan's side most likely gets knocked out this turn.
Yeah, well, the Air Slash into the Klefki is going to make sure it can get softened up a little bit, but as you see the Thunderbolt go into the Archaludon, Stefan's setup into this is going to be all she wrote. As the Archaludon gets knocked out, it's down to the final two Pokemon, Klefki and Sinistra, and Yanmega keeps taking off. Those speed boosts are really starting to stack up here.
I really like switching in Klefki here, and most importantly switching out the Sinistra, because it means that if Klefki takes any damage coming in, you get to bring Sinistra right back in, use the Hospitality to heal it up, and especially knowing that this Klefki is probably what's going to be your end game. Like, the damage from Dazzling Gleam isn't too great, but looking at the two Pokemon left, Yanmega might get knocked out by it. It's not super bulky of a Pokemon, and our Archaludon on Wolf's side is not holding the Assault Vest. It is the purely offensive set. So Klefki here actually not necessarily something I think you or I would have pegged as the offensive threat, but I think it's going to be really tough for Wolfe to break it, especially if Stefan's able to go for a light screen here.
Well, Bug Buzz first. So Bug Buzz into the Sinistra. It's actually going to be able to survive through that, which means that it's going to have to take the double up here from this Archaludon, and it gets knocked out for its troubles. No way for Sinistra to be able to help out in the rest of this game with Trick Room or otherwise, as the Dazzling Gleam from Klefki is going to have to get a knockout now, and it does get the knockout onto the Yanmega. Crit to boot, but it might not have even needed it to secure that knockout.
This is going to be so close. This Archaludon, again, -1 special attack we see there, thanks to the two Snarls after the one Electro Shot. These now, same type attack bonus Thunderbolt coming through into Klefki does just over a quarter. This Klefki might have enough left in the tank. Dazzling Gleam will be a 2 KO here. If it can survive one more turn with Thunderbolt, Klefki will win.
Another Thunderbolt comes out, and the Klefki, it's just going to keep getting whittled away, but it's still alive to go for another Dazzling Gleam, and that is enough. In this crazy best-of-3 set, it's going to be Stefan Mott at the end, winning that 2-1. What a series!
That is so impressive. Not only did Stefan take down Wolfe, who is an incredible competitor, really hard to beat under any circumstances, but after that long technical break that we had,